Nick Kyrgios is one of those names in tennis that make headlines regardless of his performances. He's not only a highly controversial figure and the designated bad boy of tennis, but he's also one of the most talented players on the tour. Rod Laver believes that Nick's got every ability in the world. That's massive praise coming from the Rocket. We'll review his comments on Kyrgios and recap his most infamous moments. Starting with, Rod Laver praises Kyrgios. Rod Laver is probably one of the biggest names to ever play tennis, and it seems that he's finally realized his fellow countryman's immense talent. Telegraph interviewed Laver on the sidelines of the Laver Cup this year, and while the tournament was overshadowed by Federer's retirement, his comments have finally made it to mainstream media. Talking about Kyrgios, Rocket explained how Nick has every ability in the world and every shot you could want to do. He's not wrong at all. Kyrgios has it all, and when it comes together, you can see that he's not a player you'd want to be up against. Laver added how Nick is probably among the greatest servers in the game, and that's a fantastic observation. Many people seem to overlook Nick's serving because he's not counted among the server bots, but that's just lazy analysis. Nick's serving is outrageously good, and his big serves aren't something you want to be at the end of. The legend also explained how Kyrgios has this exceptional ability to play under pressure, and he absolutely loved the fact that he made it to the Wimbledon final this year. It was a glorious moment, and we enjoyed seeing Nick get there. He actually could have gone all the way, as Rod observes, if only he could apply himself in these games. The great man believes Kyrgios didn't believe he could win Wimbledon, and that's why he came up short. Coming from someone who has a lot of experience in winning slams, Laver definitely knows what he's talking about. Moving on, Rod wants Nick to realize his potential. One of the worst things in sports is when talented players fail to make use of the incredible potential they have. Some are wasted due to injuries, others get too big for their shoes and give up on hard work, and some, like Kyrgios, are just content being second best in some matches. That is Laver's biggest complaint regarding the 27-year-old. He genuinely thinks that if Kyrgios can truly understand how good he is and enter the court knowing he's good enough, the results would be very different. Once again, we can't help but agree with the Rocket because he's spot on. He added that the day Kyrgios stops thinking that winning just 3 games is enough in a match, he'll be a much different player. It's true as well. Kyrgios genuinely thought that because of the easier draw in Wimbledon and the lack of big names in the US Open, he truly stood a chance of winning a slam. What we saw in those 2 tournaments from Kyrgios were top-notch performances and an extra bit of motivation, which we haven't seen since he came onto the tour. But Laver thinks this has been a good learning curve for his fellow Australian tennis star, and he'll be a different player next year. Despite all the praise, Rod was still a little sad that Nick couldn't make it to the Laver Cup because of some personal commitments, but he's excited to welcome him back next year. This could be a big one for Kyrgios if Laver's is on point. Moving on, let's take a look at Nick's most infamous moments. First up at number 6, the explosion in Rome. This explosion in Rome was much less severe than the one that we'll cover last, but it's still one of those moments that Kyrgios wouldn't want to look back on. Playing against Casper Ruud, he can't seem to catch a break with these controversies. Even though he's probably the nicest bloke you'll ever meet, Kyrgios lost his temper completely. He struggled to play against Ruud, who was making life harder and harder for the Australian. After losing his temper, which included swearing at a line judge and also kicking a bottle before throwing a chair on the court, Kyrgios effectively defaulted himself from his second-round match against the Norwegian. Well, that's the least they could have done. The man was practically asking for it. Surprisingly, he was only fined $20,000 along with forfeiting his prize money, and he had to pay hospitality damages too, but you'll feel he got away with this one. Up next at number 5, the water bottle gesture. In his semi-final defeat to Marin Cilic at Queens in 2018, Kyrgios did something we can't quite explain. Well, we can of course, but it isn't something you'd expect from someone in their early 20s. Teenage, yeah maybe, but 20-something? Really? Sitting in a courtside chair, Kyrgios held the bottle between his legs and then proceeded to shake it while spraying water all over the field. If that wasn't odd enough, he also made several expressions with his face, and that was enough for it to be deemed inappropriate behavior. Can anyone guess how much he got fined for it? You were close. $17,500 for those gestures. Also at number 4, Kyrgios lets loose in Shanghai. The Shanghai Rolex Masters is quite comfortably one of the most popular tournaments on tour, but it seems that Nick hasn't helped his cause there either. Playing in 2018 against Misha Zverev, Kyrgios was fined $33,000 and was also handed an 8-week suspension for lack of best efforts. Now, how can they determine whether Kyrgios' performance qualified for lack of best efforts? Well, he himself said it. Nick lost to Zverev 6-3, 6-1 in only 48 minutes, and during the match, at one point, he even asked the umpire if he could end the match so he could go home. In the post-match conference, Kyrgios explained that he doesn't owe the public anything, and he didn't ask them to come watch him. It's like he genuinely doesn't care. But it's not like tennis is his favorite sport or something either. We're not kidding. He says he doesn't love tennis. Into the top 3, Nick's beef with Stan Wawrinka. Playing in a Rogers Cup match in Canada, Kyrgios decided to become somewhat of a gossip specialist rather than focusing on the match at hand. What he did was inexcusable and something which no one can defend, and he didn't either. During the match, Kyrgios told Wawrinka that his friend, Thanasi Kokkinakis, had his girlfriend, and that he was sorry to tell him that. Moving on, he also said aloud that Wawrinka was 18-year-olds. In the post-match presser, the Swiss star complained about Nick's comments and called them unacceptable. Unsurprisingly, he was handed a heavy fine and was given another suspension. He claims to have apologized to Wawrinka, but Stan denies it, and it remains one of the ugliest moments in the sport. At number 2, slating Novak and Rafa. This Kyrgios moment didn't occur on the court, but we just can't keep it out of this list because it's definitely one he regrets getting into. Talking on a podcast, Kyrgios accused Novak Djokovic of having a sickness and an obsession of wanting to be liked by people. Then he proceeded to describe Rafael Nadal as salty, and that was genuinely not appreciated by anyone. It's a rule of thumb in sports. You have to show respect to your elders and probably in life as well. Kyrgios, though, isn't one to adhere to the rules, so this wasn't surprising. Since then, though, he's gone on to rectify his relationship with Djokovic following the Wimbledon final, and things aren't too bad between Nadal and him. At least they don't look that bad from the outside. Finally, at number 1, drama in Sin City. 2019 was not a fun year to be an official at any Nick Kyrgios match. It was probably not an exceptional year to be Kyrgios either. Playing in Cincinnati in 2019, Kyrgios copped up a massive fine of $113,000 for 5 different separate incidents of unsportsmanlike conduct. That's downplaying it if we're completely honest here. Under pressure against Karen Khachanov in the second set, Kyrgios absolutely lost it at the umpire, claiming that the shot clock had been started too early and went into an explosive rant with a lot of obscenities launched at Fergus Murphy. He called him a potato and a disgrace, along with calling him the worst hands down. Of course, a lot more that we can't cover in this video. Then he also walked off the court, saying that he needed to use the bathroom but used his time to smash his racket into smithereens on the floor in the corridor. Not to mention, he also decided that the best place for his towel was on one of the match cameras. After, unsurprisingly, losing the match, Kyrgios refused to shake hands with Murphy, the umpire, and also called him an effing tool, before appearing to spit in his direction. Well, all that roughly costs you around $113,000. That's a wrap for this video. Do you think Kyrgios can become a Grand Slam winner in singles? And did we overlook any other infamous Kyrgios moments? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.